Storm hits, roof leaks, one hard rain and your floor bends like paper. And we call that modern construction. But 8 centuries ago, peasants with no tools, no blueprints, built homes that still stand. No concrete, no insulation, just earth, straw, and memory. Yet their walls stayed warm. Their roofs shed snow like silk. Their floors dry for generations. They didn't fight the seasons. They studied them. They watched wind-shaped trees. They followed how sunlight moved across dirt. We spend thousands on gear. They spent time, patience, repetition, because building wasn't just building. It was listening. And what they made wasn't fancy, but it worked. Year after year, storm after storm. This video isn't about nostalgia. It's about forgotten skill, because 7 of their simplest building tricks still outperform ours today. And maybe they always did. Medieval peasants didn't build houses. They raised them like crops like children. A home wasn't a product, it was a process, shaped by frost and tested by rain. No architects, no measurements, just hands and memories handed down through smoke-dark rafters and worn stone thresholds. They watched how water flowed after storms, where wind stalled in valleys, which trees bent first before winter came. They built with what they had, but more than that, they built with what they knew. Today, we build fast, we build big, but they built to last. And what they left behind wasn't ruins. It was wisdom hidden in straw, stone, and silence. Technique 1. Site selection by wind and sun. They didn't buy land. They listened to it. Where the sun lingered longest, that's where they built. Where wind howled unchecked, they walked away. Peasants mapped their world without ink. They watched how frost melted where moss grew thickest, which hills stayed dry even in rain. South-facing slopes caught warmth all winter. Natural ridges blocked northern gales. And valleys, good for crops, bad for homes. Today we flatten ground with machines. They read the ground like scripture, because to them safety wasn't a structure. It was choosing a place where shelter already began before the first stone was laid. Technique 2. Windshedding A-frames 1 or 10 words. They didn't fight the wind. They shaped their homes to dodge it. Tall and steep A-frame roofs didn't catch storms, they let them pass. The angle wasn't style, it was survival. Rain rolled down, snow slipped off. Wind split and vanished. Builders watched how trees leaned after storms, how chickens huddled near angled walls. Which side of the barn always stayed dry? That memory shaped every beam. In Alpine France and the Orkney Islands, where wind still howls at 60 miles an hour, these sharp roofs remain intact, untouched, not because they're strong, but because they know how to yield. And yielding sometimes is smarter than standing still. Technique 3. Breathable wattle and daub. They didn't seal their walls. They let them breathe. Wattle was the skeleton woven twigs, flexible, alive. Daub was the skin, a mix of mud, straw, dung, and memory. Together they flexed with the wind, swelled with rain, and dried without cracking. These walls didn't trap moisture. They released it, letting warmth in, letting rot out. Soft in texture, but sharp in purpose. In Westow, England, archaeologists rebuilt Anglo-Saxon homes with these same bones and skin. And they stood through storms, through seasons. We call it primitive, but it lasted. Because sometimes what breathes endures. Technique 4. Thatch roofs, thick as cloaks. They didn't wear insulation, they lived beneath it. Bundles of straw stacked knee-deep, angled like fur over a sleeping beast. No tar, no plastic, just grass laid right layer after layer until water lost interest. In winter, it held warmth like a blanket. In summer, it exhaled. It muffled wind, softened rain, and glowed gold in morning sun. Done well, it lasted 40 years. And when rot came, you didn't rebuild. You patched quietly, carefully, like tending hair on an old friend. At Butzer Ancient Farm in England, they thatched it again. And again. Because the wisdom wasn't in the roof. It was in the rhythm. Technique 5. Earth-hugging, half-buried homes. They didn't rise above the land. They sank into it. Half-buried walls wrapped in soil, a coat not of wool, but of earth. The cold stayed out, the warmth stayed in, and the wind never found a corner to catch. They watched how burrows stayed warm, how roots sheltered from frost, how caves stayed cool through summer. So they dug, not deep like tombs, but low like nests. In Pessac and in the Dordogne, archaeologists found homes carved into hillsides still intact, still dry. Modern houses try to escape the ground, but peasants embraced it because the earth doesn't just hold weight, it holds warmth. Technique 6. Solar-aligned home orientation. They didn't have compasses, but they had shadows. At dawn, they watched where the light first touched the fields. At dusk, where it lingered longest. That was the axis. They didn't guess. They remembered. Doors opened to the morning. Windows faced the winter sun. Kitchens bathed in noon light. And beds hid in shade. In Germany and Brittany, archaeologists mapped villages and found rows of homes turned slightly east, not aligned with roads, aligned with the sun, because they knew heat doesn't start with fire, it starts with where you stand. Technique 7. Sharing heat with livestock. They didn't keep animals outside, they brought them in. Cows slept under floors, goats huddled near kitchens. The barn wasn't separate, it was beneath the bedroom. At night, the heat rose, slowly, silently, warming walls, drying shoes, easing breath. Archaeologists in Norway found split-level homes, animals below, people above. Manure dried faster, firewood burned less. They didn't cuddle cows out of affection. They did it to survive. When fuel ran low, when snow blocked roads, they still had warmth on 4 legs. Technique 8. Sealing every gap. Like a thermal cocoon, cold doesn't blow in like a storm. It slips through cracks, holes, corners. So they sealed everything. Moss in rafters, wool in door frames, clay in every split between logs. They didn't chase heat. They trapped it. Wrapped homes like nests, dense, layered, airtight. Inside, breath hung in the air. Quiet, still, warm. Not luxury, just survival. In Eastern Europe, remains of peat-insulated huts show walls 2 feet thick, no gaps, no leaks. They didn't build big, they built tight, because warmth isn't about temperature, it's about containment. Technique 9. Central hearth as a radiant core. The fire wasn't in a corner, it was the center. Stones arranged like a sun, smoke drifting upward, warmth flowing out. They didn't wall off heat. They let it spread into beds, benches, clothes hanging above. Families gathered around, not just to eat, to exist. At night, embers still glowed, slowly warming the rafters, drying shoes, curing meat. In Poland and Wales, archaeologists uncovered floor plans with fire pits at the heart of every room. Not for show, for survival, because when warmth radiates outward, you don't chase comfort. It finds you. Technique 10. Communal labor as true technology. They didn't build alone. They built together. Walls rose not from speed, but from song, shared rhythm, shared breath. The strongest lifted beams. The eldest chose where to plant. Children packed mud with bare feet. It wasn't just labor, it was memory passed hand to hand, voice to voice. Archaeologists in rural France found village homes raised in days not by force, but by 40 hands moving as one. Modern tech brags of speed, but their real tool was trust, because a home built by one can fall alone, but a home built by many stays standing. These weren't tricks, they were truths. Houses that breathed, floors that rose above rot, walls built by hands that knew the wind. Medieval peasants didn't study architecture, they studied the earth and listened. They didn't build fast, they built wise. And what they made still stands. So before you add another smart sensor, ask yourself, what have we lost? And if one idea sparks something in you, try it. Even small, even slow, and share in the comments. Which building wisdom would you bring back first?